Hi, everybody, and welcome to Dan on Sports. Should Major League Baseball be concerned with its divorce with ESPN? As you know by now, the All Sports Network and Major League Baseball exercised an opt-out in their contract to no longer televise Major League Baseball games after the 2025 season. Otherwise, the contract would have had another couple of years to run. Now, by all accounts, what you've been reading is it was really ESPN that sought the divorce because the network is not getting anywhere near its return on its investment. The ROI, to use the lingo, just isn't there. ESPN pays Major League Baseball something like $550 million a year to carry Sunday Night Baseball, also some games on ESPN Plus and games on ESPN Radio. And ESPN is claiming the advertising revenue it received for carrying these Major League games, money they got from the advertising world, was $59 million in 2024. So now think about this for just a moment. You're giving Major League Baseball $550 million a year to carry MLB games, and you were only able to sell $59 million in advertising. In fact, ESPN claims it did better with the NHL and advertisers than Major League Baseball. So if you're Major League Baseball, should you be concerned that your game is not enabling advertisers to get an ROI, and also in this case, the networks carrying your games also are not getting an ROI? Should you be concerned? Well, you should be concerned. I don't think there's any doubt about it. I've got a big cure for that, by the way. We'll save that for another time. But baseball should be concerned. I don't think there's any doubt about it. Then you read the other side of the coin. And the other side of the coin says Fox is very happy carrying Major League Baseball. In fact, Fox is going to increase its commitment to Major League Baseball for 2025. Listen, I grew up during a time when there were no 24-hour sports channels. And then you got one, and then eventually two, and now you've got 24-hour sports channels everywhere. You've got the internet, you've got streaming. But I grew up at a time when you had the Major League Baseball Game of the Week on NBC on a Saturday afternoon. They started carrying the game on a Saturday afternoon, the first weekend of the season through the last weekend of the season. Then they did some games on the 4th of July if they didn't fall on a weekend, or Memorial Day or Labor Day. And they did the postseason. That was it. That was the game of the week. But they carried a national game every weekend, usually on a Saturday afternoon, every weekend. And then Fox came along, and they did that for a while. And Fox has been carrying baseball now for close to 30 years, if you can believe that. 30 years. That's a long time. And they were doing a game of the week every weekend. Then they cut back a little bit. In fact, they didn't start a game of the week until the middle of May. One year, it was the middle of June, and then they'd cut it off by the end of August. Well, Fox has announced its schedule, and there's going to be a game of the week again. And Fox and one of its sports channels, FS1, are going to carry a lot of MLB games. But Fox in particular, this is the over-the-air network. You could still pick up in certain areas, if you have an antenna, a Fox station, you're going to be able to get Major League Baseball games, one a week, sometimes even more. As an example, the Cubs and Dodgers open up the season early in Japan, March, 19th and 20th? Maybe it's earlier than that. It doesn't matter. Fox is going to carry it, okay? And then Fox also announced it's going to be carrying really a game of the week starting the first weekend of the season. And every Saturday or Saturday night, they're going to be carrying a Major League Baseball game through the end of the season, and also some games in prime time. So that's a commitment. So you weigh that against the ESPN announcement, and you wonder, is baseball, from a televised standpoint, in trouble? Then you've got this story from the Atlanta Braves. This was in Front Office Sports. Let me share it with you. In an earnings call Wednesday to review the club's fourth quarter and full-year financial results for 2024, Braves chairman Terry McGuirk placed a very optimistic spin on the fallout from the league's pending split from ESPN. Quote, "This will have no effect whatsoever on the Braves' economics. I think the market is going to be surprised at the enthusiasm and uptake on these sets of rights that are becoming available for next year. I know that the interest is very strong, and I'm sure you'll hear more from Commissioner Rob Manfred on this in the coming weeks. McGurk is close to Manfred and has served on a variety of key league committees. So there you have it. In other words, there are those who are saying, my goodness, Major League Baseball just threw away $550 million a year from one source, and they've got so many revenue streams, but still, that's a big hit, over $500 million a year. You divvy that up among the 30 teams, and that's a big loss for these teams. But is it a loss? According to McGurk, Manfred is shrewd. Manfred has his critics. I'm really not one of them. I think Rob Manfred has brought the game into the 21st century in so many ways, and I know that irritates some people who, Manfred is an easy target, but I think Manfred has done a good job as commissioner. But Manfred is not going to walk away from more than $500 million a year unless he's got something else lined up. And again, it was a mutual parting of the ways, but there are many who say it was really ESPN who was not getting the ROI, and that's why they opted out. But Manfred, who's upset with ESPN's coverage of baseball, he made that clear, very upset that he thought ESPN was giving more coverage to other sports and shortchanging baseball. He was particularly upset. I'm talking about on SportsCenter and some of these other ESPN shows. He's saying, all you talk about is the NFL and the NBA and some NHL. It's like baseball is the stepchild, and it shouldn't be that way when you consider that we are part of the ESPN sports package. So he was very upset by that and let it be known that he didn't like the coverage ESPN was giving to baseball outside of the actual game broadcast compared to other sports. But my point is Manfred, I believe, is shrewd enough to make up for that revenue loss. Is he going to make up all $500 million plus of that revenue loss? It remains to be seen, but McGurk seems to think he can. And baseball is also going to a streaming model. And that's the other thing that Manfred said during the split with ESPN, that cable is really yesterday's technology. And that irritated some people because Fox is carried on cable in addition to being over the air, but you have to have cable to get FS1 and FS2. You have to get cable to get some of the other MLB partners. You have to have cable, for example, to get TNT, but you don't have to have cable to get the big league games that are on Apple TV or Roku. That's all streaming. And that seems to be, and even McGurk hinted at this, McGurk of the Braves, that seems to be the model, that baseball is trying to jump ahead and figure out a package that's going to include more streaming, more apps, so that you can download an app and watch your favorite team's games. Something like 20 teams now are into the streaming this season, maybe not all of the games, but some of the games. And more of these teams have apps. The Yankees have an app, Mets have an app, and not only the big market teams, Red Sox. It's all about streaming. So Manfred does not seem that concerned. He believes he's got a sellable product and one that the advertisers will jump on. We shall see, but the ESPN MLB divorce might actually be foreshadowing baseball and how it's delivered to the public in the future. And it may be sooner than you think. And it might not involve just streaming as far as viewing the games. It might also involve listening to the games too on more than just radio. And I mean, to be fair, I haven't listened to a baseball game on the radio if I'm not in my car in years. I listen to it with my phone, streaming. And you're going to get to the point where these teams are going to say, why even cut a radio deal? These stations are, as it is, struggling. How are they going to come up with a revenue to buy the broadcast rights? Let's just stream the games ourselves, sell the advertising, sell the app to the fans. MLB does it right now to listen to the games, and go from there. There's a lot of moving parts, is all I'm saying, but how baseball is delivered to the public is changing before our very eyes. The commissioner believes he's got a sellable product, and he can not only produce revenue in that area, but also get advertisers to buy the product. You've got the betting angle to all of this, so many moving parts. So on the surface, that ESPN MLB divorce looks serious, with $550 million essentially disappearing. But that might not be the case after all. That's going to do it for Dan on Sports. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, subscribe to my newsletter. You can do all of that by going to sportscasterdan.com or subscribe to the channel right here on my YouTube channel, Dan on Sports. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching.